All right, let's dive right in. Welcome to this documentary style explainer, where we're going to unpack a massive technological story filled with incredible twists, completely forgotten eras of dominance, and a dramatic high-tech rebirth. You know, when you see a sleek electric car silently gliding down the street today, it's so easy to just assume you're looking at a purely modern invention. But is that actually true? Well, their history goes back way, way farther than most people think. Today, we're going to uncover the complete, surprising journey of electric vehicles, all the way from their earliest origins right up to today's technological revolution.
To really wrap our heads around this story, I want to challenge your preconceived notions right from the jump. Picture this. It's the year 1899. You've finally decided to purchase one of these wild, newfangled automobiles. You walk into a dealership, or, whatever passed for one back then, and you're presented with a few very distinct choices. Knowing what was available, what would you actually choose to drive? Let's completely flip our modern perspective for a second. Option 1, you could buy a steam-powered car. These relied on gas-powered boilers and could actually drive pretty far, but you had to lug around incredibly heavy water to refuel, and you had to wait a full 30 minutes literally just for the engine to heat up. Option 2 was a gasoline-powered car. But back then, internal combustion engines required these super dangerous hand cranks just to start them up. They were insanely loud, and they pumped foul-smelling exhaust right into your face. So your absolute best bet was option 3, a battery-powered electric vehicle. They were quick to start, totally clean, beautifully quiet, and if you lived in a city with an early electrical grid, you could just plug them in overnight. I mean, it sounds like an absolute no-brainer, right? So here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, the first electric era. Second, the gasoline takeover. Third, smog and the oil crisis. Fourth, the battery breakthrough. And finally, the modern electric revival. Let's kick things off right at the beginning of the timeline with part 1, the first electric era, when the battery was king. To give you an idea of just how dominant they actually were, get this. By the end of the 19th century, nearly 40% of all American cars were electric. Following some early 19th century experiments, practical battery-powered cars had truly arrived on the scene. In major cities that were just starting to build electrical systems, battery-powered cars were this incredibly popular, highly reliable alternative to their dirty and sometimes literally explosive competitors. They were absolutely the premium choice for getting around town. But there was a massive catch. Electric vehicles had one fatal flaw, and that was the batteries themselves. Early car batteries were expensive, they were incredibly heavy, and highly inefficient. Even brilliant minds like Thomas Edison spent years trying to build batteries that could store more juice, but they really struggled. People even built battery exchange stations in cities to quickly swap out dead batteries for fully charged ones, which is pretty clever. But even those measures weren't enough to give these cars any real long-range capability. And most importantly, an electric car cost over twice the price of a gas-powered one, making them a luxury item most people just couldn't afford. And that critical vulnerability perfectly sets the stage for part 2, the gasoline takeover. The internal combustion engine rules the road. A rapid-fire sequence of technological and economic shifts completely dethroned the electric vehicle. In the early 1900s, massive oil discoveries suddenly made gasoline incredibly cheap. Right around the same time, a crucial invention, the electric starter, finally eliminated the need for that dangerous hand cranking. Mufflers made gas engines quieter, rubber mounts stopped the terrible vibrating. And then came the absolute knockout blow. In 1908, Henry Ford released the Model T. It was cheap, it was high quality, and thanks to mass production, it totally captured the public's imagination. By 1915, the popularity of electric cars had absolutely plummeted. 55 years, that's the crucial number here. For the next 5.5 decades, the internal combustion engine completely and totally ruled the roads globally. Aside from a few super niche vehicles, like milk floats or golf carts, the electric car basically vanished from the public eye. Gasoline had won. But as we know, history rarely moves in a straight line, which brings us to part 3, smog and the oil crisis, the turning point. By the 1970s, the tide finally began to turn against gasoline. Two massive threats really woke the world up. First, there were severe concerns in the U.S. about oil availability and foreign dependency, which sparked this desperate, renewed interest in alternative energy. Then, in the 1980s, studies started definitively linking car exhaust with the thick, toxic smog that was literally choking major cities like Los Angeles. So this wasn't just an economic issue anymore. It was a full-blown public health crisis. This pressure forced governments and environmental organizations to finally reconsider the forgotten electric vehicle, leading to strict regulatory mandates, especially in places like California, that were specifically designed to cut down on smog.
So the demand was suddenly there, but that old 19th century problem remained. The cars desperately needed better energy storage. Welcome to part 4, the battery breakthrough, solving the EV problem. Now here is where it gets incredibly ironic. Car companies had just spent 55 years pouring literally all their resources into perfecting gas engines. They completely ignored the century-old battery problem. But you know who didn't ignore it? The portable electronics industry. In their race to build better laptops and cell phones in the 1990s, tech companies developed highly efficient, energy-dense nickel metal hydride batteries, and soon after, revolutionary lithium-ion batteries. It was the tech industry, not traditional automakers, that accidentally paved the road for the modern EV.
Now, I should clarify real quick. Early hybrids were not true purely electric vehicles. Their nickel metal hydride batteries were mostly just used to capture braking energy and optimize the efficiency of a traditional gas engine. They were an absolutely vital stepping stone, proving that battery tech was viable on the road, but fundamentally, they still relied on fossil fuels. Which brings us right up to the era we're living through today. Part 5, the modern electric revival, the high-tech comeback. In 2008, a relatively unknown startup named Tesla Motors completely grabbed the attention of consumers, legacy automakers, and regulators around the globe. They released the Tesla Roadster, which was powered by thousands of those laptop-style lithium-ion batteries. And the magic number? 320 kilometers. That is how far this purely electric sports car could travel on a single charge. It nearly doubled previous range records and proved, once and for all, that electric cars didn't have to be slow, heavy, or constantly running out of juice. Since that 2008 breakthrough, the advantages of modern EVs have become pretty undeniable. We've seen massive improvements in cost, performance, efficiency, and widespread availability. Because electric motors deliver instant torque, modern EVs can actually accelerate much faster than traditional gas-powered sports cars. And sure, while the upfront sticker price on some models can still be a bit steep, the lack of gas and reduced maintenance reliably saves drivers a ton of money over the long haul. You couple all of this with aggressive government policies like Europe's strict CO2 emission standards and California's zero-emission vehicle mandates, and we are seeing a dramatic slowdown in global investments for gas-powered tech. And if you're sitting there thinking a total transition away from gasoline is just some futuristic pipe dream, let's take a look at Norway. In the year 2020, 75% of all new car sales in Norway were plug-in electric vehicles. That's 3/4 of the entire market. It vividly proves that with the right infrastructure and policies in place, the complete replacement of gas-powered cars isn't just theory. It is already a present reality in parts of the world. So that brings us to our final thought. Over a century ago, the electric car lost its crown to the loud, rumbling internal combustion engine. But today, armed with cutting-edge lithium-ion technology and driven by this urgent need to protect our environment, it is rapidly reclaiming its place on the road. Will electric vehicles finally put gasoline in our rear view for good? Well, the momentum certainly suggests we are witnessing one of the single biggest technological transformations in automotive history. If you enjoyed this documentary and learned something new, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Tour Theory Explains for more fascinating stories about technology, engineering, science, and innovation.